Welcome to day 6 of the 12 days of Viva, and this one is all about learning.
Hi, I am Merete Stava, and I'm a Chief Customer Officer and Senior Solution Architect at Cloudway. And I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer and a Microsoft MVP. And also a Viva Explorer Navigator, which I forgot to add to this slide. And I love what I do. I'm very privileged having the work I do, being out with my customers, helping them to achieve the best of their Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Viva solutions that they may have or are planning to get.
Hi, I'm Sara Fennah. I'm a Microsoft 365 consultant and trainer. So I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and have been for 15 years. And I'm a Microsoft 365 apps and services MVP as well. The Viva Explorers are a group of MVPs who are passionate about Microsoft Viva and helping you make the most of this new technology. You'll have seen several of my fellow Viva Explorers on other sessions in this festive tech calendar. We're doing the 12 days of Viva, and I hope you enjoy all 12. This is the 6th day of Christmas, and on the 6th day of Christmas, Microsoft gave to me new learning pathways. I've still got my clear OKRs, I've still got awesome focus and learning plans, I've still got better communication and intranet, and a great experience for employees. I'm going to talk to you about Viva Learning in Microsoft Viva. Now, Viva Learning sits inside that growth pillar. It's one of the products that we use to help our employees grow, to learn, to move on with their job, yet succeed in what they're currently doing today. The product does what it says on the tin. It's about bringing learning into the daily work of your users. So Viva Learning brings learning into the flow of your work. What are the benefits of this? Well, we can learn socially with our colleagues. We can chat about what we're learning about. We can share interesting modules that we've found. We can surface the learning that we're doing in Teams in the tabs. We can recommend content and learning to colleagues. We have a personalised learning page with the things we're looking at and interested in, as well as reminders, because life is busy and we all need reminders, let's face it, prompts to do the right thing as we go through our daily work. We've also got easy discovery of content, integration with Microsoft Search, and coming soon, Viva Topics as well. So that concept of learning being easy to reach, not something we have to make a really big effort to do, it being there day to day, is the social learning. I'm now going to hand over to Maretta, who's going to talk to you about the setup of Viva Learning.
Now we're going to have a look at the basic setup and the part that we get for free. When we say for free, it means that you don't need to buy an extra license. Then you most likely you have this as part of your existing Microsoft 365 license. So you can check with your admin if you're not sure which kind of license that you have. But at least E3, E5, and upwards, they should all have the basic setup for Viva Learning on an individual level. That will be no extra cost for that. And now we will have a look at how to get started with Microsoft Viva Learning. Before we even start or to hit the button called Start Viva, there are a few things that we need to make sure that we do and define the roles and responsibilities. That doesn't mean that we necessarily need to employ 10 new more people. It means there are already probably people who have those roles and responsibilities today, or maybe those roles and responsibilities are a bit vague. We're not sure. We think somebody else have them. These can be a bit fragmented and not quite clear in on all organizations. So before we even begin with the Viva, it's important to make sure that we have defined these roles and responsibilities and where they belong. And we're going to come back to which roles and responsibilities that is. And also to define our strategies, objectives, and targets, because we want to something with our learning, don't we just? So it's important to see where we're going with this learning and to make sure that we give the right type of learning and the right type of skills. We need to see where we are going and which strategies, objectives, and targets that we want to reach, and then give our employees the right tools and skills and knowledge to do just that. And in addition, it's important to map current learning resources because we might have already different kinds of learning resources, perhaps in different parts of the organization. So it's important that we get a good overview of what do we currently have, what is the plan for those different kind of learning resources. Are there any new ones that we want like to use, or are there any that of those current that we want to get rid of? Are they costing too much, etc., etc.? So there are some different mapping to be done, and then make sure that we define which one we want to bring into Viva Learning. And knowledge management and competency is the whole reason why we would like to do the Viva Learning. And the Viva Learning tool is excellent for making sure that you bring training and learning elements into the flow of work. But also, what is important is the steps before that. Where are we when we come to knowledge management and competency? And I will show you now some tools how to figure that out. Each organization, they have their a certain set of competency that they would need to do whatever business they are doing. Like, are you building trains? You need to have somebody who knows how to build trains. That is one thing. But something that is equally important for all of us is our digital competency. And EU has worked out a framework for digital competency, and this consists of 5 areas that you can then use to map out where are you today in your organization within these 5 areas, and where do you want to go. And what one thing you can use this for is, for example, create a survey that either you send it to everyone in your organization or to certain roles and snapshots as part of your well, you send it to certain roles in your organization to get a snapshot of current digital competency. That could be when it comes to information and data literacy, that they, for example, know how to find information. They also know how to look for the digital content. When it comes to communication collaboration, they know how to work in channels in teams, for example. That yes, I feel comfortable, or I don't know. Then you can have like a type of survey that gives you different questions that will give you the answers of where are your employees on these 5 areas. And then you can do the same survey maybe in 6 months time, and then see what is the change and what have you done to make that change, and then you can iterate. And here we have the rules for implementing Viva Learning. What is important to remember is that Viva Learning, or any kind of learning solution that you might have, is a live material, and you need to keep, as the organization is maturing, also the learning platform will mature. So not only need, for example, a program owner during the implementation, but equally important after the implementation moving forward. So it's important to define these different roles. Where are they in the organization? The IT lead and the learning administrator, they will have, well, the IT lead is responsible for purchasing this new technology in case you need to also buy more licenses for the management part of the Viva Learning. And the learning administrator will have extended access to manage the learning repository as well. Then you have the contributors, who could be anyone in the organization who has some kind of responsibility to define what should be taught, basically, in the organization, and also perhaps even people who contribute with learning material, etc. So it's important to define these different roles and where in the organization they live, so to speak. And if you have LMS solutions or third-party content providers that should be integrated with Viva Learning, they should have their respective system admins or super users as well, being part of the process for integrating it into Viva Learning. We mentioned the roles and responsibilities, and to place them in the right place in the organization. And one tool that is useful for this discussion and finding out where the different roles and responsibilities should be is to use a RASI. A RASI is a kind of a matrix for roles and responsibility. And then the R is for responsible, of course, and then A means accountable, C is for consulting, I is to be informed. There are different versions of the RASI, so you can search for that on the internet, but also keeping it simple is a good key, and you don't even have to do all the 4 letters. As long as you define the activities and main activities, and then define the R and the A, and place that in the right place in the organization, then the rest can be handled by the respective groups of responsible. But what is it? Many times what I see is you maybe have a meeting with HR, you have a meeting with IT, and then they point to others in the organization. And my experience is that it's better to put everybody around the same table, and then you go through this, maybe even 5, 6 items in the list, or even 100, depends on what you want to add into this RASI model or RASI matrix. Because you can also use that for both the technical and the functional part of Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Viva. But what is important is that when you look at these different roles, activities going on, and the tasks below these activities, and then you look at which roles are responsible and accountable, and you place those responsibilities. And if you maybe see that there is a role that you don't have, then you have to agree between each other which roles, what is that role, and where should it actually live. So that could be important to make sure that you define that, and having that RASI as your master. If ever there's a discussion about the roles and responsibility, that's where you update, and then everybody are aligned on the same information and the same responsibilities. So it can be a good exercise. It maybe takes some time, but it is really worth doing to make sure that you at least place the main responsibility for the main activities in the right place. And we talked a little bit about the different learning sources, and if you turn on Viva Learning immediately, you will find you have some LinkedIn learning elements there, and as well from Microsoft Learn and Microsoft 365 trainings. In addition, you can also use content that you have created yourself. That could be in Word, PowerPoint, PDF, or video files for MP4, for example, or audio files. So, for example, if you are running regular meetups in your organization by using the Teams webinar functionalities, you could store those recordings of those webinars in a SharePoint document library, and that document library can then be defined as a source for learning, and you can use that and make it available for more in your organization. And in addition, you then would have the maybe third-party learning content providers or different LMS solutions as well. And what Microsoft have learned now when they started to build integration between different LMS solutions and third-party learning content providers is that there are so many. So they have prepared some APIs to be able to integrate all these different learning ecosystems basically with Viva Learning. So you can find a lot of good information about that on the Microsoft Doc. But this slide will give you a good overview of the different learning sources and what they are today. This image shows the integration architecture between LMS solutions, third-party content providers, and your current content that you store in your SharePoint, for example, on the left side here, and then how it's gone through the M365 graph in the back, and then it will be made available through, for example, the lens of Teams. And also you can search for different learning items in your Microsoft Office 365, in your Microsoft 365 dashboard. And then, of course, if you produce more learning services, then they will be brought back. And for example, if I'm learning, taking courses about SharePoint, for example, or about how to make good reports, if I look for security information, for example, if I have that as my main interest, more of the graph in the back will guess that and then learn that, and then will bring me more training uh, material or elements for the type of training. So this is a quick overview, maybe simple overview of how the integration happens in the back of Teams, for example, if you wanna, yeah. Here we see the suggested flow for learning ecosystem. Is where if there's a learning provider other than LMS, then the admins will set up the learning content, and it will be available through the Viva Learning. But this is of course then by license. You need extra license to be able to integrate with either LMS or learning providers. And then you could have your own curated content that you have in your SharePoint. That is not necessary to buy extra license for. And you can discover as an employee or individual, you discover and access this learning content in the lens of Teams, either through to going to the Viva Learning app in the left side menu, or under a conversation or chat, conversation in Teams channel or in a chat, for example. And also I can keep track of my learning assignments in the dashboard. If but I've yeah, and the managers, and then if for managers to have a setup of training, then they would need to have an extra license. Then I can of course keep track of my own learning and my personal bookmark contact. I can get that without the extra license. And if you have got familiar with the Viva Insights Protect time, you might have learned to use the focus time, which is very smart to set up certain times for where you can have protected time, which means that if you put on the focus time, you will not get alerts. You will basically be protected for that period of time. where you are working on, maybe you're learning something, or maybe you are focusing on some work that you want to do. So then the protect time and focus time is really useful. In addition to that, if you click on the top 3 dots in the top right corner, you will then be able to go into protect time menu once more time on the left side. And if you scroll down, you will see that you can now go into a planning time as well, not only focus time, but you can schedule recurring plan for learning. And you can set that up for 2 hours every week, for example, and then you can also define if you want to schedule that in the morning or in the afternoon, because some people will learn better in the mornings, they learn better in the afternoons. That is up to you to define that for yourself. So check that out in the Viva Insight menu on your left side in your Teams.
So now we're going to talk about the licensing of Viva Learning and what the differences are between the seeded version that's included in your Microsoft 365 subscription and the premium version that you need to pay that little bit extra for. So on this slide, we've got an extract of the Viva feature comparison site that you can find on the Microsoft Viva website under pricing, and there's a link on the slide here for you as well. This extract looks at connections, engage, and Viva Learning. I'm just going to look at the Viva Learning component, and you'll see that the Viva Learning app in Teams, the creating learning through the Teams channels, the sharing, chatting, searching for learning content, that is all included in your base license in your Microsoft 365 plan. Okay. You also get with that the Microsoft Learn materials surfaced through Viva Learning, the Microsoft 365 training libraries, and the top 125 LinkedIn Learning courses, which are obviously changing quite a bit over time. You can, as an organisation, also add in your own learning materials through surfacing those from SharePoint. When we start going to the premium Viva Learning offerings, either directly or as part of the Viva suite, this is where we have the ability to recommend courses and track those as a line manager would. I'm recommending you undertake this learning, and I'm going to check to see when you've done. Okay. We also have integration with additional partner content providers, and an API is available to integrate with learning management systems as well. Okay. And lastly, we've got surfacing the content across the Microsoft 365 suite. So this is the integration as we start moving forward, the integration in Teams, the integration in Viva Topics, the integration into other places as well. Mainly at the moment, it's that full integration with Teams and also the ability to search within Microsoft Search and find the content in Viva Topics as well. We're now going to look at the administration and manager experience inside the Microsoft Teams Viva Learning app, or if you prefer, the Viva Learning app in Microsoft Teams. So the administration tab in the Viva Learning app inside Microsoft Teams is available once you're assigned the knowledge admin role and you have a license assigned that includes those premium Viva Learning features. And this allows you to create feature sets. So we can create a feature set of particular learning content. So we can curate content together into a collection that belongs together, and we can publish those for a limited period of time. Now, there's nothing to stop you copying that feature set and republishing it again, but it does need to be for a specific time period. We tend to refer to the Manage tab in Viva Learning as the Manager tab, but actually anyone can recommend learning to anybody else and then track the progress on it in the Manage tab. So the requirements for this are: 1, be assigned the Viva license or the Viva Suite license to unlock those premium features. 2, recommend learning to somebody else, to a colleague, to a team member, to somebody else in the organisation, and then you can go to the Manage tab and track it. Now, this is more commonly actions that managers tend to take, which is why it tends to be referred to as the Manager tab, but it is actually open to anybody.